Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit you, and I'm also not gonna try to make this video any longer than it needs to be. As of late, I've been slightly peeved. And I really shouldn't be, seeing as how Splatoon 3 is just around the corner. But that is one of my problems. Now, I don't know why this is such a pressing matter. Actually, no, I do. And it's quite infuriating. For those of you who are confused, I will summarize. So Splatoon 3 is coming soon, and as I have mentioned before, it will most likely be out by the time I'm finished. On August 10th, Nintendo released the Splatoon 3 Direct, and that is where we got our first Splatfest announcement, along with the game's idols. We got the adorable little Goblin Fry, who I love very much, the Manta Ray Big Man, who, to be honest, I don't care much about, and then lastly, Shiver, who has been quite the talk of the town lately. The reason why Shiver has been discussed so much as of late has to do with their gender. Personally, when I first saw Shiver, I actually thought that they were a guy, like a feminine yet androgynous guy, and I really hope I'm not alone on that. However, the overall main discussion is a lot of people who think that Shiver is actually non-binary. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, but Z, I have been living under a rock for the past 14 years. What is non-binary? I'm glad you asked, and I'll try to explain this to you in simple terms. So, non-binary is a term for those who don't feel like they fit solely into male or female. They might identify with a mix of both male and female, or with no gender, and then there are those who might identify more with one gender, but not completely. Though remember, that does not make someone any less non-binary. Another thing to add is that non-binary does fall under the trans umbrella, so while some non-binary people might identify as trans, not all trans people are non-binary. Now at this point, I'm pretty sure some of you guys are thinking, wow, this seems kind of confusing, and I will not lie to you, it kind of is. Gender overall, in trying to understand it, isn't easy. However, while you might not understand it, you know what isn't hard to understand? Respecting people. Oh, but Z, these people might just be lying for attention. Well, to be honest, that's not really your call, is it? Until you know that sort of thing for sure, just be nice? Like, it's not hard. Lastly, if you're one of those people who thinks that non-binary is just attention-seeking or refuses to refer to someone by their correct pronouns, well, you're just a piece of shit, aren't you? Anyways, back to Splatoon. As for the evidence that Shiver is non-binary, the evidence is as follows. In no promotional material are there specific pronouns used to refer to Shiver. Even the original Japanese text does not seem to use one main pronoun, and in fact seems to switch between male and female, which I find interesting. That is pretty much the biggest piece of evidence. The other thing is that at first glance, Shiver seems to be wearing a binder. Now I understand what she's doing here is actually called Sarashi, which I apologize if I fuck that up. Sarashi is when someone takes cloth or bandages and wraps them around the chest. It's usually used by women to flatten the chest and hide femininity. However, when it's used by men, it's really just a symbol of toughness. So combined the chest flattening with the lack of pronouns, and it seems kind of cut and dry. A pretty good case of non-binary if you ask me. And even if Shiver is not non-binary, it is at least somewhat of a case to show that Shiver is not cis. Of course, some people will be dicks, and there will be those who insist that Shiver is cis. However, as long as those people aren't being rude or blatantly transphobic, I'm sure that we can coexist. The sentiment changed on August 24th, though. On that day, multiple articles were written, however, I'll stick to the one made by The Verge, since most gaming journalists don't do any fucking research and just bounce opinions off each other. In the article, it states that after the Direct, people asked Senior Vice President Nate Bildorf about Shiver's gender. Nate here answered that in fact, she is female. Which is a shame, since it was a chance at representation and it was shot down. I guess that's the end of it. Or is it? Guys, I'm going to teach you a little lesson here, and I know we just read the article, however, we're not just going to read it, we're going to fully understand it. The biggest problem that we're going to tackle here is that this is badly done. I'll even be bold enough to say that it isn't a good or solid source. You might be confused since technically the source would be Nate's testimony, so allow me to explain. First of all, where's the damn receipts? I already don't trust gaming journalists, and I especially don't trust The Verge. I mean, they constantly give Apple products good reviews. You think these people are trustworthy? No, but honestly, can I see some kind of confirmation that Nate said this? DMs, emails, fucking pen pal letters? I'm sorry, but I don't believe you when your article in essence is just, we asked Mr. Nintendo and he said yes. And if you're the type of sucker who believes this kind of journalism without any pinches of salt, then boy oh boy, do I have some good old snake oil to sell you. By the way, you want to know an interesting little observation? I'm not alone when I say I don't trust gaming journalism. That's the overall sentiment. But as soon as it has to do with, I don't know, denouncing the possibility of someone not being cis or not being gay or anything else in video game media, suddenly the game journalists are trustworthy. Just a little observation. Now that that's out of the way, here's my next problem. It's the person they decided to ask, Mr. Bildorf himself. Now, I'm not here to claim that Nate is bad at his job. However, I do want to point this out. Nate is not a Splatoon 3 developer. He is not a character designer. He is not an animator. He is not a programmer. In short, he did not work on Splatoon 3. Seriously, why did these people ask him instead of someone who actually worked and designed Shiver? My next problem is the branch of Nintendo that Nate works for, which is Nintendo America. You know, the same branch that constantly fucks up LGBT characters in translation. The same branch that constantly makes Kirby male in America while they are agender in Japan. The same branch that fucked up Vivian, a trans character from Paper Mario who in the original Japanese text has references to originally being male and erasing that in the English version. Lastly, Nintendo of America is the same branch that messed up Birdo, a character who arguably has the messiest history in reference to her gender, where at a time they are constantly flipping between her being cis, trans, or a cross-dressing man. This, if you haven't noticed, is a problem. Overall, I do not trust Nintendo America to properly translate LGBT characters, because clearly they have a history of not doing it right. However, turns out a lot of people don't think that this is a problem. The response, in my opinion, was vile. So many people lacking in empathy towards the people who just wanted a crumb of representation. Listen, I understand that you lack literacy skills and emotions due to your fathers leaving you, but you do not have to take it out on random people online. A lot of it is just blatant transphobia, and no, I am not going to play semantics with you because her NB isn't the same as being trans. Yeah, I mentioned that before. It is under the trans umbrella, therefore it is transphobic. Oh, but Z, I'm not transphobic. I have real arguments. Alright, well, as far as I was able to tell, there are only two possible arguments, while not being completely transphobic, can definitely come off that way. Argument number one goes as follows. Just because non-binary people exist does not mean they need representation in everything. Look, this one's very stupid, and I could honestly just call you a dumbass and be done with it, but I will be real with you. Non-binary people, I don't think are asking to be in everything. And even if they are, who does that hurt? Genuinely, who? If it hurts your brain to hear that one single character will be non-binary amongst a cast of cis characters, well, that just might be the transphobia talking. If you haven't noticed, non-binary people exist. So that means eventually they will exist in your video games. And you're just going to have to get over it. The second argument goes as follows. I wouldn't be as rude to people with this headcanon if they didn't push it down our throats like gospel. Stop misgendering Shiver. You good? Genuinely? Like, I'm honestly asking, because that sounds asinine. I really don't know what else to tell you, other than you're just looking for an excuse to be hateful. Why the fuck do you care if random user 123 on Twitter is constantly claiming that a character is non-binary? If you go over to shit on their post about a headcanon, then you're just being an asshole looking for confrontation. Their headcanon about Shiver being non-binary does not hurt your existence, and it will not hurt your game. Quit being such a fucking child. By the way, if this is your response to someone just headcanoning that a character is non-binary, I would hate to fucking know what you would do in response to a character being confirmed non-binary. Does the blatant transphobia just get a multiplier? Kinda wanna know, but at the same time, would be very embarrassing for you. Lastly, let's be honest, the same people who type this sort of shit out don't care about misgendering. Like, don't even go there. I could go on and just berate these people for the things they say, but it would honestly get tiresome. Just know, those of you who basically went out of your way to be rude to the people who are sad at the news that Shiver is possibly not non-binary, the way you act is just incredibly inappropriate. I don't know what else to tell you. Maybe grow up and be a better person? In conclusion, is Shiver non-binary? Well, honestly, I'm not sure. It would be nice though, and it's not impossible. I mean, Splatoon 3 basically got rid of gender altogether in the character creator, and a big aspect of Splatoon is the freedom of expression and style. The game has a huge LGBT fanbase. Do you seriously find that impossible? 'Cause I don't. A message to those of you who are constantly saying that Shiver is not non-binary, and overall argue that non-binary people don't deserve representation, because I'm pretty sure you guys come from the same pot. Non-binary people deserve just as much representation as cis people. Games will continue to get more inclusive, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Psst, final note here. Those of you who say that Shiver uses she, her pronouns, therefore it proves that she's cis, just so you know, some non-binary people can do that and use only she, her pronouns. That does not write out the fact that Shiver could be non-binary. Honestly, cope.